Shadows of Ambition. Richard Matthews stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse office, watching Seattle's skyline glitter like a circuit board of success. At 36, he had transformed Matthews Technologies from a promising startup into a billion-dollar empire. The view reinforced what he'd always believed. Ambition required sacrifice. "The acquisition paperwork is ready," his assistant said from the doorway. "And Ms. Reed has been waiting for 30 minutes. Richard's jaw tightened. "Tell Olivia I'll be down in 10 minutes. He straightened his custom suit and studied his reflection. The confident man looking back bore little resemblance to the idealistic programmer who'd fallen for Olivia Reed in their university days. Back then, they'd shared dreams of changing the world through ethical technology. Now, with his company poised to dominate the market, such idealism seemed quaint. Olivia sat in the reception area, her auburn hair falling in waves around her shoulders. When she looked up, her hazel eyes reflected both familiarity and uncertainty. "Richard," she said, rising. "Congratulations on the Syntech acquisition." "Thanks," he replied, gesturing toward his office. "Let's talk privately." Inside, Olivia declined his offer of champagne. "What's happening, Richard? You've been distant for weeks. The Richard I know wouldn't pursue this acquisition. Syntech's privacy violations are exactly what we used to stand against. The Richard you knew didn't run a company valued at $7 billion, he countered. Business evolves. So do people. Is this about Vanessa Phillips?" Olivia asked quietly. Richard stiffened. Vanessa Phillips, heiress to the Phillips Investment Group, had been instrumental in arranging several critical funding rounds. Their professional relationship had recently evolved into something more, something that promised connections to boardrooms Richard couldn't access otherwise. "This isn't about Vanessa," he lied. "It's about what's best for Matthews Technologies. Don't you mean what's best for you?" Olivia challenged, her voice breaking slightly. 7 years together and suddenly I'm a liability to your image? Too ordinary for the great Richard Matthews. "You don't understand the pressure," Richard said, irritation rising. "Every decision affects thousands of employees and millions in shareholder value." "I understand perfectly," Olivia replied. "You're choosing a life where relationships are transactional, where Vanessa Phillips makes more sense than the woman who believed in you when you had nothing but a laptop and dreams." Richard walked to the window, his back to her. "You and I want different things now. You want a family, a quiet life. I need someone who understands this world." "Someone who elevates your status," Olivia corrected, tears glistening. "I'm not asking you to choose between me and success, Richard. I'm asking you not to lose yourself chasing it." "I know exactly who I am," Richard said coldly. "Perhaps you never did." Later that evening, Richard sat across from Vanessa in an exclusive restaurant overlooking the bay. Her dark hair was elegantly styled, diamonds glinting at her throat. "To our future," Vanessa purred, raising her glass. "Phillips Investment Group is prepared to back your Asian expansion fully." "Perfect timing," Richard replied, pushing thoughts of Olivia's tearful departure from his mind. "I've arranged for us to attend the governor's charity ball next month," Vanessa continued. "The right connections will be crucial for the regulatory approvals you'll need." Richard nodded appreciatively. This was what he needed, someone who understood the game. As he sipped his wine, he convinced himself that the hollow feeling in his chest was merely the natural adjustment to progress. "You made the right choice," Vanessa said, as if reading his thoughts. "Sentimentality is a luxury successful people can't afford." Richard smiled, but somewhere deep inside, a voice whispered that he had just traded something authentic for something merely valuable. He silenced it with another sip of wine, focusing instead on the empire yet to build. Unexpected encounter. 3 years after that fateful choice, Richard Matthews stood at the center of the grand ballroom, surrounded by Seattle's elite at the annual Children's Hope Hospital fundraiser. Matthews Technologies' stock had tripled, his net worth had soared past $10 billion, and business magazines regularly featured him as the tech world's most ruthless visionary. "Darling, Senator Wilson wants to discuss that telecommunications bill," Vanessa whispered, her hand possessively resting on his arm. "Do be charming." Richard nodded automatically. These events had become a tedious necessity, showcasing philanthropy while securing political influence. He excused himself to get another drink, seeking momentary solitude. At the edge of the ballroom, a children's art exhibition featured drawings from the hospital's patients. Richard paused, unexpectedly drawn to a vibrant watercolor of a rocket ship soaring through stars. "That's mine," came a small, clear voice beside him. Richard looked down to find a little girl, perhaps 7 years old, with auburn hair pulled into neat braids. She wore a blue dress with tiny stars embroidered along the hem. "It's excellent," Richard replied, surprised by her confidence. "You have real talent." "Mom says creativity is about seeing possibilities others don't," the girl stated with remarkable articulation. "Like how that swirl isn't just a mistake, it's the rocket breaking through the sound barrier." Richard found himself smiling genuinely for the first time that evening. "That's a sophisticated perspective." "What's your name?" "Emma Reed," she answered, extending a small hand formally. "I'm 7 3/4." Richard froze as he shook her hand. Reed, a common enough surname, but combined with that auburn hair and those intelligent eyes. "Are you okay, Mr. Matthews?" Emma asked. "Your face went funny. How do you know my name?" he managed to ask. "Everyone knows you," Emma replied matter-of-factly. "Your company makes the tablets we use at school. Plus, your picture's over there." She pointed to a donor wall where his portrait hung prominently. As Richard studied her face, his breath caught. Emma's eyes were unmistakably his, the same distinctive green with flecks of gold that had stared back at him from every mirror of his life. But her smile, the way her nose crinkled when she spoke, those belonged to Olivia. "Emma." "There you are," called a familiar voice that sent a jolt through Richard's body. Olivia Reed approached, looking more beautiful than he remembered. Her hair was shorter now, her style more polished, but her warm presence remained unchanged. She stopped abruptly upon seeing Richard, her hand instinctively moving to Emma's shoulder. "Hello, Olivia," Richard said quietly. "Richard," she replied with composed politeness that couldn't mask her tension. "I didn't expect to see you here." "Mr. Matthews likes my rocket ship," Emma announced proudly. "He said I have talent." "He's right," Olivia agreed, her eyes never leaving Richard's face. "Emma, would you please find Dr. Harrison and tell her I'll have those illustrations ready by Wednesday?" Once Emma bounced away, Olivia spoke in a controlled whisper. "She doesn't know about you. She's mine, isn't she?" Richard asked, though he already knew the answer. "Biologically, yes," Olivia confirmed. "In every way that matters?" "No. You made your choice, Richard." "You never told me you were pregnant," he said, a surge of anger rising. "I had a right to know." "You made it perfectly clear that family wasn't part of your vision," Olivia countered. "I found out 2 weeks after you ended things. By then, you and Vanessa were already appearing in society pages." "Richard, there you are!" Vanessa's voice cut through their conversation as she approached. "Oh, hello. I don't believe we've met." "Olivia Reed." Olivia introduced herself with perfect composure. "An old acquaintance of Richard's." Richard watched awareness dawn in Vanessa's calculating eyes. "Ms. Reed designs the children's ward murals," Richard explained stiffly. "Her daughter Emma is quite the artist as well." "How lovely," Vanessa replied with practiced charm. "Richard, we should join the Westbrooks table before dinner." As Vanessa tugged him away, Richard glanced back to see Emma returning to Olivia's side, animated as she spoke. His daughter. The knowledge crashed through him like a tidal wave, washing away the carefully constructed justifications of the past 3 years. "Who is she really?" Vanessa asked once they were alone. "Someone I knew before we met," Richard answered, his mind racing with implications. "And the child?" "She has your eyes, Richard." The accusation hung in the air between them. For the first time, Richard realized how closely Vanessa monitored potential threats to her position. He also realized with sudden clarity that he needed to know his daughter. Hidden truths. The morning light streamed through the windows of Olivia's cozy craftsman home as she carefully added watercolor details to an illustration of a brave mouse sailing a leaf boat. Her home studio overlooked a small garden where Emma was currently attempting to build a fairy house from twigs and moss. "Mom, look," Emma called, pointing proudly at her creation. Olivia smiled, grateful for these perfect moments that made the difficult journey of single motherhood worthwhile. After leaving Seattle following her confrontation with Richard, she had rebuilt her life in Bellingham, a smaller coastal city far enough from Richard's world to feel safe, yet close enough to her support network. Her career as a children's book illustrator had flourished unexpectedly. The whimsical world she created for Emma had caught a publisher's attention, leading to a successful series about a little girl adventurer who looked remarkably like Emma. The irony wasn't lost on Olivia. Her heartbreak had somehow led to her most fulfilling work. The doorbell rang, interrupting her thoughts. Olivia wiped her hands and went to answer, freezing when she saw Richard Matthews standing on her porch. He wore casual clothes, jeans, and a simple button-down, so unlike his usual corporate armor. "How did you find us?" she asked, not inviting him in. "I have resources," Richard answered, then seeing her expression added more gently, "Public records, Olivia. Your children's books aren't exactly obscure. What do you want?" Olivia asked, keeping her voice low to prevent Emma from hearing. "To talk." "About Emma." Richard's typically confident demeanor had given way to something uncertain. "May I come in?" Reluctantly, Olivia stepped aside. They moved to the kitchen, where Richard noticed the refrigerator covered with Emma's artwork. "She's extraordinary," he said softly. "Yes, she is," Olivia agreed, crossing her arms. "Why are you here after 3 years, Richard?" "Because I didn't know I had a daughter for those 3 years," he countered. "Were you ever going to tell me?" Olivia sighed. "I don't know. At first I was too hurt, then too proud. Eventually I convinced myself Emma was better off without a father who had made it clear that family was incompatible with his ambitions." Richard flinched at the accuracy of her assessment. "Does she ask about her father?" "Of course she does," Olivia replied. "I've told her that her father is a brilliant man who helps build the future, but that sometimes people's paths go in different directions." "You didn't vilify me," Richard noted with surprise. "What would that accomplish?" Olivia asked. "I want Emma to form her own opinions someday. Besides, she has your determination, your analytical mind. I see you in her every day." Richard's composure cracked slightly. "I'd like to know her, Olivia." "As what? A weekend father when it's convenient between board meetings? A secret Richard keeps from Vanessa?" Olivia challenged. "Emma deserves better than to be an afterthought." "She wouldn't be," Richard insisted. "Seeing her, seeing how happy you've made her despite my absence, it's made me question everything." Their conversation was interrupted by the back door opening as Emma bounded in, cheeks flushed with outdoor play. "Mom! I need more—" She stopped, recognizing Richard. "Hello, Mr. Matthews from the hospital." "Hello, Emma," Richard replied, his voice uncharacteristically gentle. Olivia took a deep breath. "Emma, Mr. Matthews came to see some of my illustration work for a project. Would you show him your treehouse drawing while I make some tea?" As Emma enthusiastically retrieved her sketchbook, Olivia whispered to Richard, "I'm not saying no forever. I'm saying you need to be certain. She's not a business acquisition you can divest if things get complicated." Richard watched as his daughter returned, presenting her drawings with the same confidence he approached boardrooms. The weight of all he had missed, first steps, words, birthdays, settled on his shoulders like a physical burden. "Emma," he said carefully, "these are extraordinary. You have a remarkable imagination." "Mom says imagination builds better worlds than just logic," Emma replied, unconsciously echoing debates Richard and Olivia had had years ago, looking between them, this child who shared his blood and the woman who had loved him, enough to preserve his memory despite his betrayal. Richard realized he had been pursuing an empty version of success, one that had left no room for what truly mattered. Part 4. Bridges and Barriers. Richard sat in his sleek corner office, staring at the unopened architectural plans for Matthews Technologies' new Singapore headquarters. The expansion would cement his company's global dominance, Yet all he could think about was Emma's delighted expression when she discovered they shared the same fascination with space exploration. Over the past month, he had visited Olivia's home 6 times, each visit carefully planned to avoid detection by Vanessa or the press. These stolen afternoons with Emma, building model rockets, discussing her inventive stories, even awkwardly attempting to braid her hair, had awakened something long dormant within him. His phone buzzed with a message from Olivia. Emma's science fair today. She's presenting at 4 p.m. No pressure, but she mentioned hoping you might come. Richard immediately canceled his executive committee meeting, ignoring his assistant's protests. As he drove to Bellingham, he realized how easily corporate emergencies had once seemed insurmountable, yet now receded in importance compared to a second-grader science project. The elementary school gymnasium buzzed with activity. Richard spotted Emma standing proudly beside a display titled, "How Rockets Break Gravity." When she saw him, her face lit up with a smile so genuine it physically ached in his chest. "You came," she exclaimed as he approached. "I wouldn't miss it," Richard replied, examining her meticulously labeled diagrams. "This is impressive engineering, Emma." "Mom helped with the cutting, but I did all the research myself," she explained earnestly. "I even included how your company's satellite technology works." Richard knelt to her level. "You know about Matthew's Technologies satellites?" "Of course," Emma replied matter-of-factly. "I Googled you. You're kind of famous?" Richard laughed, caught off guard by her directness, a trait she'd definitely inherited from him. "Richard," Olivia's voice came from behind. She wore a simple dress, her teacher lanyard still around her neck from her workday. "I wasn't sure you'd make it." "Neither was I," he admitted. "But I'm glad I did." As Emma demonstrated her project to the judges, Richard and Olivia stood watching with shared pride that felt both natural and surreal. She told her friend Zoe, "You're her dad," Olivia said quietly. "I haven't confirmed or denied it. I think she's figuring things out on her own." The simple statement hit Richard with unexpected force. "What should we do?" "That depends," Olivia replied, studying his face. "On what you want long-term, Richard." Because for Emma, there's no such thing as a temporary father. Before he could respond, his phone rang, Vanessa's ringtone. Richard silenced it, but the moment had shattered. "You should take that," Olivia said. "We both know your other life doesn't just disappear because you want to play dad for an afternoon." "It's not like that," Richard protested. But the doubt in Olivia's eyes reflected his own internal conflict. Later that evening, Richard returned to his penthouse to find Vanessa waiting, her expression coldly furious. "Care to explain where you've been disappearing to?" she demanded, sliding a tablet across the counter. On screen was a grainy photo of him at Emma's school. "Or why my fiancé is attending elementary school functions 2 hours from Seattle." "I can explain," Richard began, though he wasn't sure he could. "Please do," Vanessa interrupted. "Explain why you've been visiting your ex-girlfriend and a child who looks remarkably like you." "Did you think I wouldn't find out?" "Emma is my daughter," Richard stated simply, finding unexpected relief in saying it aloud. "I only discovered her existence at the hospital fundraiser." Vanessa's laugh was brittle. "How convenient. Just as we're finalizing the Phillips-Matthews merger and preparing for the IPO. "This isn't about business, Vanessa." "Everything is about business," she countered. "Do you have any idea how this looks? The board will question your judgment. Shareholders hate family drama." "She's my child," Richard said firmly. "A child you never knew about until now," Vanessa pointed out. "Think carefully, Richard. We've built something extraordinary together. Are you really willing to jeopardize that for some misplaced guilt over a family you never wanted?" The question hung between them, but for the first time, Richard saw clearly the calculation behind Vanessa's every action, the same cold pragmatism he had once valued above all else. "The Phillips investment in the Singapore expansion," he said slowly. "It's contingent on our marriage, isn't it?" Vanessa's slight smile confirmed his suspicion. "My father doesn't invest in unstable situations. Family unity projects confidence to shareholders." Richard moved to the window, looking out at the city he had once believed represented everything he wanted. "I need time to think. Don't take too long," Vanessa warned. Some opportunities don't come twice. Neither do some women. As she left, Richard realized he faced the same choice he had 3 years ago, but this time, with the clear understanding of exactly what he would be sacrificing. The Heart's compass rain pattered against the windows of Richard's office as he signed the final document. His lawyer, Thomas, gathered the paperwork with a concerned expression. "Are you absolutely certain about this, Richard? Stepping down as CEO is extraordinary enough, but restructuring ownership this way?" "I've never been more certain of anything," Richard replied, his voice steady. "The board gets the stability they need, the company continues its mission, and I get what I need." "And what exactly is that?" Thomas asked. Richard smiled. "Perspective." 6 weeks had passed since his confrontation with Vanessa. 6 weeks of soul-searching, legal negotiations, and finally, clarity. The announcement of their broken engagement had created the expected media frenzy, fueled by Vanessa's thinly veiled threats to withdraw Philip's funding. Richard had responded with unexpected poise, restructuring the company leadership while maintaining controlling interest through a more diversified board. Now, he stood in the light rain outside Olivia's Bellingham home, not as a billionaire CEO, but simply as a man hoping for a second chance. Emma opened the door, her face brightening. "Richard, did you bring the telescope?" "It's in the car," he confirmed, "though we might need to wait for the rain to stop." Olivia appeared behind Emma, her expression guarded but not unwelcoming. "I didn't expect you today." "I have something important to discuss," Richard said, "with both of you." They settled in the living room. Emma curled beside Olivia on the sofa while Richard sat across from them, oddly nervous despite having negotiated billion-dollar deals with less anxiety. "I've stepped down as CEO of Matthews Technologies," he began. "I'm remaining on the board, but I've transferred day-to-day operations to Catherine Jimenez, our COO. "Because of us?" Olivia asked cautiously. "Because of me," Richard corrected. 3 years ago, I chose a path I thought would bring fulfillment. I was wrong. Success isn't measured in acquisitions or market share." He turned to Emma. "I've missed too much already. I don't want to miss any more." Emma looked between the adults, piecing together the unspoken. "Are you really my dad?" she asked bluntly. Richard glanced at Olivia, who nodded slightly. "Yes, Emma, I am. Why weren't you here before?" Her question held no accusation, only curiosity. "Because I made a mistake," Richard answered honestly. "I thought other things were more important than family. I was wrong." Emma considered this with remarkable maturity. "Everyone makes mistakes. My teacher says what matters is what you do after." Richard smiled at his daughter's wisdom. "That's exactly right." He turned back to Olivia. "I've purchased a house here in Bellingham. Not too close, I understand we need boundaries, but close enough to be present in Emma's life. If that's okay with both of you." "You're leaving Seattle?" Olivia asked incredulously. "What about Vanessa? Your company?" "Vanessa and I want different things," Richard explained. "As for the company, I can consult remotely. Technology makes that possible." Richard took a deep breath. "I'm not asking for forgiveness, Olivia. I don't deserve that yet. I'm asking for the chance to earn it, to show Emma and you that people can change when they discover what truly matters." Olivia studied him, searching for any trace of the calculating businessman who had broken her heart. Instead, she found sincerity in his eyes that reminded her of the idealistic young programmer she had first fallen in love with. "Emma deserves to know her father," she said finally. "We can start there." Later that evening, the rain cleared enough for Richard to set up the telescope in the backyard. Emma's excitement as she observed Jupiter's moons for the first time filled him with a joy no business success had ever approached. Olivia stood watching from the porch, her arms wrapped around herself against the cool evening air. Richard joined her while Emma continued her astronomical observations. "Thank you," he said simply, "for raising such an amazing person, for keeping me alive in her world despite everything." "I did it for her," Olivia replied. "She deserved to know she came from something good." "I want to be worthy of that," Richard said. "Of her. Maybe someday. Of you again, too." Olivia didn't answer, but she didn't move away when he stood beside her. Together, they watched their daughter cataloging stars with the same methodical passion Richard once applied to business acquisitions. "Dad," Emma called excitedly, "come see this star. It has two different colors." The word "Dad" hung in the night air, more valuable than any title Richard had ever held. As he rejoined his daughter at the telescope, Richard understood that true success wasn't measured in wealth or power, but in moments of genuine connection, in the courage to rebuild what once seemed irretrievably lost. Behind them, Olivia smiled softly. The future remained unwritten, but for the first time in years, its possibilities stretched before them like the infinite stars above, each one a point of light guiding them home.